in the eye.
Hello and welcome to the Energy Realities podcast with Tammy Nemeth. How are you today, Tammy?
I'm doing well, thank you, Irina. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. How's the weather over in the UK?
Hey, it's sunny today, a bit windy, but can't complain. It's a beautiful fall day, or almost fall.
Wonderful. Those panels and those turbines must be producing sustainably.
Yeah.
And we've got David Blackmon. How are you, David?
Oh, I'm just thrilled to be here. It's a wonderful, beautiful day in Texas, as always.
That's great. You really love the place you live. I love
I
that.
do.
I love
Oh,
the
I
place
do.
I live too. You have a great landscape as a background as
Yeah, that's
well.
the Texas Hill Country. I'm not there. It's fake.
All right. And we've got Stu Turley, who is where today, Stu?
I'm in Oklahoma today. I don't know if this can be seen, but there's the lake, and
Ooh, beautiful.
we've got a
Wow.
beautiful full moon. I've reformed back into my original shape here, so I'm no longer hairy. So we're ready to rumble after this full moon.
Great, we got you at the right moment. Now, today we'll be talking about natural gas, or more specifically, the Power of Siberia, and number 2, Pipeline 2, because the Chinese finally signed a commitment to build that with Russia. And we'll be talking about the oil glut. Does it exist or not? Lots of news about the oil glut today because there's a conference that started in Singapore today, right after the Shanghai Cooperation Organisation meeting last week. So there's a lot to discuss, and I'm going to start with Tammy. The latest developments in oil and gas around the world.
Oh, well, I think what was really fascinating about the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting is that it's this counter supposedly to NATO to some extent. About it originally set up as this kind of defense organization after the collapse of the Soviet Union, how to sort of make sure that there's reasonable security in that area and no terrorism and all that kind of stuff. And it's really kind of grown into not just a security organization, but this year in particular, promoting economic cooperation. And I think besides the announcement of Power of Siberia 2, which is another really big natural gas pipeline from Russia into China, which would be a way for Russia to divert whatever natural gas it would have sold into the EU, will now be all going to China pretty much, or to other Asian areas, was the announcement of a development bank. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting because there's already a BRICS bank that they set up in 2014 to sort of counter the World Bank and the IMF. And so now there's another development bank with seed money from China of 2 billion won, which is about, I'm not exactly sure what the exchange rate is, but I think it was something along $260 million or something like that. And so here's another counter to the World Bank and IMF to help build infrastructure. And they were talking about all these kind of different economic arrangements between the members. And I'm just going to give a quick rundown of some of the members because there's 10 main ones. There's China, there's India, Russia, Iran, Pakistan, and then Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Belarus. So some of those countries are also in the BRICS, but some of them aren't. I'd say about half of them aren't in the BRICS arrangement. So here's another development bank that's supposed to be promoting infrastructure, trade, and supply chain integration. That was what they had talked about at this meeting. And this development bank is supposed to assist in this kind of alignment and integration, which then begs the question, how is this going to compete with the IMF and the World Bank that also offers these kinds of developmental loans and whatnot. And is there a concern that China will have too much power and control with these relationships? So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
I know how they will compete with the IMF and the World Bank. They will not be attaching climate change strings to their deals.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that will save a lot of money.
Well, they did
Yeah.
talk about green transition in one of the statements at the meeting, but is that just pro forma, to show the EU, oh, look, we do care about climate. We're not completely anti-climate. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's pro forma. You have to say it. Even if you don't mean it, you have to say it. David, is there an oil glut in the world right now?
Well, that's a matter of debate. I don't think there is. I mean, inventories have been declining all over the world. They're like 40% down year over year, national crude inventories, and that's generally a sign of a undersupplied market, not an oversupplied market. Yet the price continues to soften because signals coming from OPEC Plus, which again over the weekend announced more production increases beginning October 1st to put more oil on the market. And, when you look at who's predicting the glut, or who's saying there's a glut versus who's saying there's not a glut, it's hard to decide which is more reliable. I mean, OPEC obviously has a much more bullish outlook for crude at the present and in the future than the IEA and EIA and even ExxonMobil does. But at the same time, to me, we just had 3.3% growth in the U.S. in the second quarter this year. That's after a first quarter where we had essentially 0% growth, and a fourth quarter of last year when growth was also pretty low. That's an indicator that the U.S. economy is heating up. And that generally is a sign that the global economy is heating up. And that generally is a sign that that demand for crude is on the rise, not on the decline. So I think it's highly debatable whether there is a glut currently and whether it's going to get worse down the road. I frankly don't think there's currently much of a glut, if there's any at all. And that it's not going to get worse as the year goes on. I think the market's going to get tighter. And so I'm kind of wondering, when you look at how the market responded to the OPEC announcement yesterday, even though they said they're going to put more crude on the market, crude prices overnight rose by 2% in response to that, because it was less of an increase than the analysts, who are always wrong, expected. And so as is always the case, it's really hard to know exactly what's happening in global crude markets. And I suspect that's not ever going to change. But no, that was a long way around to saying, no, I don't think there's a glut.
Yeah, especially the monstrosity that the IEA says will hit us next year, 3
Yes.
million barrels daily.
Yeah.
But,
Well, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's not. But what I find kind of schizophrenic about oil price prediction, it's always been uncertain, of course, because you don't know what will happen tomorrow or next week. But this time it's really strange, because it has all become about perceptions. People expect OPEC to boost production, which OPEC said it would do, and prices go down. But when OPEC actually says by how much they will increase production, market says, well, that's not too bad. So let's buy more oil. Now, Stu, because I really love your take on events in Europe, how do you think Europe will be affected, if at all, by this new Power of Siberia deal between Russia and China, which will bring the total pipeline capacity from Russia to China to about the same as the combined capacity of Nord Stream 1 and 2, which is about 110 billion cubic meters annually?
It's going to the EU and the UK need to get their act together if it's at all possible. It's going to absolutely realign the entire natural gas market in the world. And this is the Shanghai map. And if you take a look at this, there are observer countries, Afghanistan and Armenia. You have our Azerbaijan also had some real problems in this as over the weekend and stuff. So as we take a look at the map of the pipeline itself, 100. I mean, this thing is just huge. Here's the problem in this amount. This is from the IEA. You take a look at, here's where the map is, where the Siberia 2 pipeline is going to be rolling through. They say it's going to take about 5 years, but it's already been under construction for part of this and is already rolling. So I don't know the timelines. I've got to try to find that out. But when you take a look, this goes right on into the direct area of the manufacturing for China. But let's look at the gas volumes before Ukraine was invaded by Russia, or before Zelensky started picking a fight with Russia, whichever way you want to look at that. Take a look at the amount of volume that was there. Now take a look in 2024. They are in, the EU is in a deindustrialization for 2 reasons, and fiscal collapse because of net zero policies and the lack of natural gas. Yes, they're going to get LNG, but there is a price difference between LNG and pipe natural gas. So you're going to see this shrink even more. The question that you got to ask, and President Trump, I love President Trump, but I think he's missed the boat. He says that he is going to crush the Russian economy by steeper sanctions. This great energy writer in the world has said sanctions don't always work as intended, I believe is one of the greatest lines ever said about sanctions. And President Trump, if you're listening to this podcast, you are wrong in how you're handling this one, because it is going to be a real problem.
Yeah, but Trump has proven that he's quite flexible. He can change his mind if he sees that the pressure campaign is not working as expected. He could, go back and do something else. He is an example that EU leaders should follow, because they are the opposite of flexible. They just double down and triple down again and again. I think this would be a real problem for Europe, because, as you said, there's the LNG, and they have actually made a commitment to buy a lot more LNG from the US, but this will not bring down energy costs. And now more industries are sounding an alarm. The steel industry.
Let me add to this. China has not bought LNG from the US in the last several months, and they've already bought 3 loads of sanctioned Arctic 2 LNG from Russia. The third is already in port being loaded right now. So sanctions don't work as intended. And I think that this is going to bifurcate the world into the morons and the ones that are going to be successful. The morons are going to be the EU and the UK. And then you've got the head of the morons, the United States, trying to lead a pack of countries that are in fiscal failure. And I mean, we're talking the EU and the UK are in a really big fiscal. We have $35 trillion worth of debt we're trying to manage. So we've got the higher handicap group here. Which one's going to be the worst one out of this? Then you're going to have the bifurcation of China, EU. I mean, you're going to have the whole different India, Asia, everything else. I thought it was going to be the bifurcation of those following net zero and those following energy sanity. Boy, did I miss this one.
Stu, what do you think about Patrick Devine's comment here? Europeans work well under pressure. Doesn't that agitate against your EU theory of being morons?
They
I think he's being sarcastic.
absolutely.
I think he is, yes.
I see that their open border policies have absolutely destroyed much of the EU, and the open border policies have destroyed the UK. We are about to see some very big social unrest. What happens in energy policies is you get high energy prices, you get social unrest, you get open borders, and you get all this done by the UK, the UN enforcing all this in there. You have countries like Poland going, no way, you bad man, you not Poland. They're going to be okay. It's the countries that have had the open borders that are going to be in some serious trouble.
Yeah, it's interesting that Poland has not got into trouble with Brussels because of its closed border policies, while Hungary got into trouble about it.
Yeah.
But what's even worse about natural gas is you have Zelensky, who was installed as a leader and has canceled the voting of his own people. So who's a dictator now? Has been bombing Russian natural gas pipelines going to his neighbors. So it's kind of like going, hey, dude, he just had a meeting with some of his his neighbors, and they're saying, please stop blowing up Russian assets. We need their assets. And he's like going, no, I'm too stupid.
No, he said these are sanctions. If you're talking about the Druzhba pipeline, he said these are sanctions because Hungary and Slovakia continue buying Russian oil. Oh, well, anyway. But our problem in Europe is that people are sane mostly, but we keep electing insane people.
Yeah.
And Patrick, we do work well under pressure up to a point, just like anybody else.
Just like anybody else.
This thing is too much pressure.
Patrick also
I went on a David Blackmon rant this morning. I am sorry.
That was good. That was quite a diatribe and filibuster there, Phil. I mean, Stu.
Filibuster.
A filibuster. Oh my gosh.
Filibuster. Yes, Senator
Sorry
Stu. The other question Patrick had is, speaking of supplies, the U.S. government making progress on SPR? The answer is no. Volume in the SPR has increased since year over year, since Trump took office, by just 26 million barrels. Okay. It's virtually nothing. It's a rounding error. So we have 403 million, according to EIA at latest count, in the strategic oil preserve. The capacity is over 700 million. And there has been zero news. I don't like to criticize Chris Wright, but there has been Secretary Wright, but there's been no news about filling the SPR since June out of the DOE. So anyway.
Yeah, I remember reading back in June that there was maintenance that they were doing on the facilities, and it wouldn't be until December that they would start putting more oil in, just because they had left it empty for so long that it was affecting the salt caverns and whatnot, and maintenance has to be done before they can put more in. So I think maybe that's why, but yeah.
That's great because prices might go lower, making it even more, enticing to start filling it.
There you go. Yes, I mean, if Goldman Sachs is right, it's going to be $52 next year.
Yeah. Which is such a fine line, right? Between wanting to have the price high enough that additional production comes online to ensure there's a consistency there, but you don't want it to go too low because then no one's going to be producing more, and then that'll have an effect, and then suddenly the prices will increase, and there'll be, runs on the prices and whatnot.
I think Goldman Sachs subscribes to Jim Cramer's newsletter because they're not right.
Oh,
Probably, yeah. This is the problem because oil prices are moving on perceptions rather than actual physical world data. It's
yeah.
very easy to have very low prices for an extended period of time, which will discourage producers from expanding production. And then an oil price shock would only be a matter of time. And none of
Yeah.
us would like this.
No,
Well,
and
because then it affects inflation. It
Yeah.
affects
It
everything, and
affects
so
everything,
yeah.
so I mean, so people are here in the United States are trying to give Trump all the credit for lower oil prices. Has the administration influenced that a little bit? Yes, a tiny little bit. But the price for crude is set on a global market, and there's 1,000 different factors that impact what the crude is traded at every day that no American administration has any control over. Does he like prices being lower? Sure, he does, because gas prices are low. We had the lowest gasoline price at the pump in America this year in 5 years, and adjusted for inflation, probably in 20 years this year. So that's nice, and that's good for helping to kill inflation, because transportation costs are such a big aspect of the inflation rate. And yeah, he likes it, but Trump doesn't have this magic wand that just says, okay, I want prices at $62 and there it goes, right? I mean, it's just people. He's really powerful. He's really influential on the global stage right now, but he's not Superman. And oil price is a very complex subject that nobody really is an expert in, even though they pretend to be.
Yeah, they pretend very hard and very frequently, as we've seen today. How long is this conference going to last? I forgot to check. Do you know, Tammy? In Singapore.
In Singapore.
Singapore, yes. Sorry. This I do not know.
They'll probably keep entertaining us for another couple of days at least.
But that's such an interesting.
These. Sorry.
I'm sorry. What? I interrupted.
No. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's just such an interesting thing, this Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and it's almost a competitor to BRICS, right? And it seems the Shanghai organization seems to be gaining influence year after year, particularly with India's decision, apparently last weekend, to, I mean, geopolitically align itself more with China and Russia now than with the United States. China and India have historically not been friends, not been best buddies.
Nope.
And so that's a really, really significant thing that Modi did last week, I think.
And President Trump hit himself in the foot with a hammer when he put the extra sanctions on India.
Right.
The difference between the Shanghai group and BRICS is going to, I believe, Shanghai organization has the potential of doing what BRICS wanted to do, and that is really destabilize the U.S. dollar, because it does not have South Africa, and it does not have the baggage of Brazil. Right now, you have Brazil and Venezuela, with China heavily doing oil production in Venezuela and Brazil, and having massive amounts of investment in there. And that is a gigantic problem for the United States.
Yeah. Of course, the other difference is Shanghai. I mean, BRICS is a trading alliance. Shanghai is a security, trading, all kinds of different aspects to what's going on there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
Lucy.
Irina said they overlap. Yeah.
They overlap, and they're not mutually exclusive. So they kind of compatible. Go ahead, Tammy. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say that BRICS tended to be a more informal alliance, like a forum, and then they set up their development bank. But the really big news out of this, besides the Power of Siberia pipeline announcement, was this development bank, because then it would be meant for those security members. And, they have my understanding is that the SCO has a secretariat. It has a more formal sort of alliance structure than BRICS does. And like David said, it doesn't have the African countries. It doesn't have a lot of the Middle Eastern countries. I guess Iran you could count as being straddling Middle East and Eurasia, but it's for that region, right? And so if you've got if you have like that area with its own development bank, and I think that the interesting thing there would be, how do you settle the currency exchanges? And there's some debate on how that's going to work, if other countries are going to put money in to this new bank. Is it going to be, because the big concern with the BRICS Development Bank is it's controlled by China. Yeah. And so how do you deal with that in order to have these infrastructure projects to accelerate again the Belt and Road Initiative, which, you know, other countries are kind of like, whoa, what are you doing, China? There's lots of strings attached with that in a different way than how the IMF and World Bank operate. So it'll be interesting. And one of the assessments I read from Geopolitical Futures was one of the problems with the SCO is that you've got these mortal enemies almost, India and Pakistan, and they don't always agree on things, and that can be an issue. But I don't know, if you've got India and Russia and China as the anchors here, there's probably a way to have an alternate to the sort of OECD, NATO kind of structure.
Patrick has a question about the funding of BRICS and SCO. Well, how well funded or supported is BRICS or SCO to fund development among members? Well, apparently they do have money. I mean, they're not poor countries. And they don't have kind of debt that the West has, so maybe they can afford to, you know, fund projects, infrastructure projects in the region. And some of these Central Asian countries have a lot of resources, natural resources.
True. Yeah.
Aren't both of the development banks at BRICS and SCO basically Chinese operations?
Well, China has the money. China has the money. And so they put it in there, and then they create this kind of structure. And my understanding with the BRICS Bank, if I remember, is that other countries have put money in, but it's under the sort of Chinese banking structure. So it's got a lot of sort of Chinese and Russian people in charge, and some countries find that problematic.
Gotcha. Hard to imagine why.
I think what these developments actually show the rest of the world, if anyone is willing to listen, is that geopolitics and economic policies are not a matter of kindergarten disputes. Right. You don't have best friends. You have people you can work with to mutual benefit, which is why India can work with China despite their long-running territorial disputes, which is why India can be in the same organization as Pakistan. The two were close to a war just a couple of months ago.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think this is a very important lesson that some people west of the Middle East need to learn, but they will not.
Maybe all people west of the Middle East need to learn that.
Well, maybe not all, but definitely some.
Yeah. No, yeah, well, I mean, I think that's a really good point.
And it's a very, very simple point, which should be blatantly obvious, but apparently is not.
So well, it's transactional in nature, isn't it? I mean, India can work with China on certain things, and it's all transactional. And the Trump administration, it's largely how Donald Trump functions. Everything's transactional.
Yeah.
But he gets himself in trouble sometimes when he's up at 2:00 in the morning, putting out truths on Truth Social and saying things that piss off Modi and Putin and Zelensky and I know he does some of those things for a good reason, but some of it just sounds like getting mad at 2:00 in the morning and saying things that the Caroline Levitt has to try to explain the next day.
Well, nobody is perfect.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Stories,
Stories.
Sure.
Oh, boy.
Okay.
they're along the same lines, some of them.
Yep.
Okay, I think mine are not.
You have LNG then.
Yes. So part of the what Mark Carney has talked about and brought in was like one of the only things Parliament did when it sat for like all of 2 weeks after the election was this sort of national interest building bill. So basically all of the different regulations and legislation in Canada that prevents pipelines and proper energy development from happening, none of that's been repealed, but they put in a new piece of legislation that back at the end of June is that it can be expedited 2 years. Decisions will be made by cabinet on what projects go forward. I mean, it's insane. Anyway, so part of that is that provinces were supposed to submit projects that they would hope would be considered on the short list that would meet the expectations and requirements, which are very vague, on what's a national interest project. And so Fermeuse Energy announced that it wants an LNG export in Newfoundland, which is the island on the east coast of Canada. They want to put up an LNG facility there because they're promoting the development of some offshore natural gas fields. I forget what it's called. Jeanne d'Arc, I think, is the big basin. And they believe that there's an awful lot of natural gas there that they want to develop and then have an LNG facility to export that to Europe, which sounds great. So they're hoping that this would be considered as one of these national interest projects that will help promote the development of the Maritimes and so on. And this flies in the face of Justin Trudeau, who said there's no business case for LNG to ship to Europe or Japan or wherever. But it also flies in the face of what Alberta wants to do, because they wanted to extend this pipeline across Canada to the Maritimes and export its natural gas, mingle it with whatever they develop on the East Coast, but have an outlet there so that they're not stuck exporting strictly to the South or now to the one LNG facility on the West Coast of Canada. So this is good news in some respects for energy development, LNG development in Canada as a whole. Not so good for Alberta, but happy that there's at least something happening. The second story is titled AI Isn't Free. The first costs are on your bill and more are coming. And this is from the Epoch Times. Basically, AI facilities and data centers are being hooked up to the grid and customers are paying more for it. Instead of charging these companies a proper industrial price, the price is being flowed through to regular ratepayers, to regular customers. And some analysts have gone through and sort of unpacked what people are paying in certain jurisdictions, particularly in the East Coast by Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, and those areas. And it turns out that they're paying an awful lot more for their energy now over the past 3 months because of these data centers coming online, these AI ones that are consuming so much energy. So big surprise. A bunch of the grid operators were saying, well, if you're going to build a data center, bring your own energy. And it turns out that's not happening. So
Tammy, is this because back east, I've noticed that many government data centers are asking for the additional transmission lines on taxpayer side of it, and they're government offices and data centers, so they're not having to go out and get their own power sources. So I'm trying to find out the difference between public or privately held data centers versus the governments, and I'm finding I don't have all the data yet, but the consumers are getting messed over in the drive-through because of the government.
Great distinction, Stu. Yeah, I haven't really been able to piece together what the differences are, but and I wouldn't be surprised if the bringing, like Patrick said, bringing the renewables or the wind and solar onto the grid and how that destabilizes things, how that is also an expensive proposition.
And in New Jersey's got nuclear and natural gas. And I found that to be, wow, that's net zero, the best you can possibly do. But their energy prices are so high because of their distribution and tax problems. So it's Democrat run tax problem.
I will say that the Texas legislature passed a bill in this year's session that is going to require big data center operators to provide their own behind the meter power initially before they can be hooked into the grid until the grid can adjust and increase capacity to handle them without flowing through price increases to residential
and David,
consumers.
Was it SB 6 that says that they can shut down the data center if they're pulling too much power?
That's right. So when you see data centers going in Texas, virtually all of them are going to be providing their own behind the meter generation. They're obtaining it from a company like Exxon or Chevron, which are building enormous natural gas power plants right now to become suppliers of energy to data centers. So there's a lot happening in Texas that's not happening in some of these other grids. And that's very short-sighted in the rest of the country.
Yeah, that's a great point to make. You know, all these different jurisdictions have different rules. And you would think it would make more sense to do what Texas is doing, saying, you know, if you're going to be drawing so much energy off our grid, you need to be coming with your own before we hook you up or whatever. And whatever extra you have, then that flows to the grid.
Yeah. And by the way, I just want to say one thing. Our Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, takes an awful lot of crap from his fellow Republicans and all these really smart Democrats in Texas for being this far right-wing nut. Those provisions in Senate Bill 6 are there because of Dan Patrick. So I don't want to hear any crap about him and the grid problem. Anyway, that's just my diatribe for today.
I'm done. That's it. Oh, you can find me on the Nemeth Report .substack.com. I try to publish every week, and I've got different podcasts up there every so often and articles. So check it out when you have a chance.
Oh, this is me. Hey. So the first one, red state to house first of its kind recycling center for nuclear fuel. Basically is a story that it's good to be a red state right now. Oklo, a recycler of spent petroleum fuel rods, is opening a big recycling center in Tennessee because Tennessee is a favored state right now in the Trump administration. In the Biden administration, this facility probably would have ended up located in New Jersey or somewhere. But good for them. That's I think a growth industry that they're first movers on here in the United States. And Oklo has long been in this business, and I'm sure this center is going to be a big success and have a lot of demand for its products. Second one is U.S. power capacity set for a big jump as renewable growth slows. This was in Reuters last week. This is a significant story. They did a survey. Reuters actually commissioned a survey and found that announcements of new construction, not just proposed plants, but new construction on new natural gas power plants in the United States increased by 154% year over year in July. And so this is, just part of the reality that we've been talking about here, predicting here for the last 2 years, is now finally going into the construction phase in the United States. A lot more natural gas, and that's going to continue to be the trend in the U.S. For the next 4 years at least. and depending on the 2028 election, maybe longer than that. And it's just all part of it goes back to the data centers, because we've talked about that. They can't do it with wind and solar, even with backup batteries. They have to be online 99.999% of the time. It's their 5 nines uptime requirement. And you can only do that with coal, natural gas, or nuclear. And in the near term, it's going to be natural gas, and maybe some coal in there as the Trump administration moves in that direction of permitting new coal plants or keeping older ones open longer than currently planned. But in the longer term, the plan, at least 10, 15 years out, is to move more to nuclear. There's a lot of moving parts to that, and you hope that's successful, right? I think we all do and believe that's going to happen. But there's an awful lot that has to happen in terms of government regulation and technology development and getting it approved by the NRC before that nuclear renaissance can take place. And the administration wants to move quickly on that, but they haven't even reconstituted the NRC membership yet. And that's a key to making everything happen. So that's 10, 15 years in the future. In the meantime, it's going to be natural gas.
Tammy, was that a bat that went by your
Was that a
screen?
bat?
No, it was a really big moth.
Holy
moth. Okay.
My window's open and it came flying in.
Boy, there it came. Yeah.
Man, get some garlic or something. That looked like a vampire bat.
Well, it flew in by the camera and I was just laughing. It was like, oh my gosh, that looks enormous.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was not. And poor old David just kept going. The bat.
Yeah, I just power through.
Pro.
I saw that. I thought maybe it was I was having a stroke or something.
Sorry.
You can find me at Energy Transition Absurdities. I wish I hadn't named it that, but it's too late to rename it because everything is absurd and it's kind of redundant. But that's where you can find me, David or Blackmon.substack.com, and would love to see you there.
We have the same story about the
Oh my God, we have this. I'm sorry.
which is actually great because I wanted to make an additional point about it. That wind and solar is slowing down and projects under construction or pre-construction there are declining because people are canceling projects. But at the same time, the Solar Power Industry Association keeps harping on about how cheap, how quick to install, and how reliable their energy is, their capacities. So do it, install it. Who's stopping you? You just won't have the subsidies. If it's so cheap, then it's competitive. Right. Compete. No, seriously.
They don't have the transmission lines. They don't have the transmission lines.
Right.
So then they complain that.
So sorry, then it's not so cheap then.
Yeah, everyone's supposed to pay for it, right? But not the company, apparently.
But not them.
Yeah.
Well, then you're not competitive, and you know, shut up.
Exactly.
The other story I saw in all the. That's not funny. It's a tragedy. The other story I actually saw covered in pretty much the same way in a couple of outlets. That the Power of Siberia 2 will be bad for US LNG export. Now, my first thought was that if this was happening during a Democrat administration, they would not have written this.
Yeah.
They would have said that it's no problem because China is not importing any LNG from the US anyway. So what disruption are you talking about? It will have no effect whatsoever. And in fact, it could be kind of positive for exports to Europe for as long as Europe has the money to pay for these imports, because sooner or later they'll go broke and won't be able to pay their LNG bill. But it was really, it's clearly a narrative story.
Yeah. And it's the FT, so that's no surprise, right?
Sorry?
It's the Financial Times, so the narrative aspect of that is no surprise, is it?
Yeah, it's not just the FTA. I think it was a similar story was in Bloomberg and
Yeah.
or Reuters, one of
Of
these,
course.
but two of the three covered it with the same message.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not going to be a problem. Russia is switching to China from Europe. Europe is getting US LNG.
Yeah.
As much as it can pay for. I will not stop pointing this out. They will not
Yeah,
be able to
exactly.
pay for it. But that is Europe's problem, and then with growing demand at home, US gas producers, possibly at some point even LNG producers would be able to sell LNG on the domestic market. Who knows? It could happen sometime in the future if the laws change.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought it was interesting and kind of pathetic, but we know there are no depths to which they want to. So
Yeah. America bad. That seems to
Yeah.
be the
but only when Trump is in power.
Only
Yeah.
when
If-
Trump's in power.
Yeah.
Biden, it would be no good, no problem at all.
It was all great when we had Jennifer Granholm running DOE.
oh my gosh. Yeah.
She had
Painful.
the brain power of a potato bud. Did I say that?
You
Sorry.
did.
Yeah.
Dude.
You're right.
Okay.
Well, you're not in the EU, so you can't be prosecuted.
Oh, okay.
But no, what was it?
Just don't travel. Don't land at
violation.
Heathrow anytime soon.
Public interest or something. Yeah.
There you go.
I rant at Irina Slav on energy. It's Substack. I try to be funny, but I can never be funnier than reality.
All right. Let's get ready to rumble here. We've already covered two of mine. On one of mine, let me go ahead and bring it up here. And that is, why is China putting in so much oil into billions into Brazil and Venezuela? We've got a gigantic problem coming around the corner here, and I'm wondering why it's not showing up. There it is. Boom. When you sit back and take a look at this, there is several $billion, 4.818 billion across 39 different projects, making it a 112% increase from the previous year into Brazil. The picture, however, in this article is actually a new drilling and production unit going into Venezuela. So China is not only California is a national security risk for the United States because they're buying 70% of the Ecuadorian oil produced out of the rainforest produced by China. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Wow. So China is really in South America producing oil, and they're doing energy as an exports as a service through their oil companies. And I've been talking about this with energy dominance around the world is energy export as a service by using the United States companies by going out and doing drilling. China is already doing it in our own backyard.
Yeah.
So pretty crazy. And then you can go to, and you can find me on energynewsbeat.co or .com, whichever one, it routes you there. And then also on the Substack, theenergynewsbeat.substack.com. And I had my General Flynn interview got canceled. General Flynn and I will be talking again on the 15th. So that'll be kind of fun.
Wow.
So it just got
That should be
postponed, not canceled.
Just postponed. He got double booked and had an overrun. So I'm going to get to visit with him. Looking forward to that one. I have a few other nice big guests coming on as well, too.
Awesome.
Woo! Way to go, Stu.
Yay. At least I think I'm funny.
You're funny.
Wow.
You don't always
Yeah.
intend it, but you're funny. Kind of like me.
I'll tell you what, we kind of ended up a little early here. I'd say we've still got a lot of material here. The thing that you brought up, Tammy, was phenomenal about the data centers and the cost of energy. Is I put out that on my Substack a little while ago. The biggest inflationary problem in the United States for the Trump administration are two things: California's national security risk, as well as the inflationary energy prices and how those are coming around. And as we found out, I didn't know about New Jersey. Nuclear and natural gas is 80% of their power. You would think that they would be in the lower section of the price range in the United States. They're not.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
right.
they're like
No.
California. There's so many taxes and fees, and then
Yeah.
all they've invested in these offshore wind ventures is
And the
just insane.
9% that they get from their wind offshore is expensive.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
But those
But-
government data centers are going to be costly.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's like related to that story I sent around this morning where the civil servants in England don't want to use AI because of the net zero implications, because of the energy use using AI. And I'm thinking, so they didn't want to use a Microsoft's Copilot because they were testing it out on different elements, going through emails and summarizing stuff and whatnot. And the people chosen to do this this trial said, well, we have issues with the energy consumption and its impact on net zero and so on. And I was wondering, do those same people, do they then not use it for like ChatGPT for other things and stuff like that? I don't know. I found that interesting that they didn't want the government to be using AI because of net zero.
It's really great how you never know when you brainwash people. You never know what all the unforeseen consequences may be.
That's a good
So
point.
it sounds like a boomerang effect. They try to make everyone worry about climate change and be more considerate and, consume less energy. And now you get civil servants who don't want to use an AI tool because it consumes a lot of energy and that's bad for the planet. I find this hilarious. And that's the government that wants to turn the UK into an AI superpower.
I know.
Right.
How's that going to work?
Tammy, if I could bring this one up, there's 2 points I'd like to add while we got a few minutes here. North Sea Energy would help Reeves fill her black hole by Catherine Porter. She is a class act, and I really appreciate her stories. And let's see if I can bring this in. It's processing here. This isn't exactly a excellent study of what not to do as far as energy policy is concerned for the UK. Holy smokes, Batman. This was a great article.
Yeah, she did an amazing job just outlining the absurdity of the windfall tax that they've extended out till 2030 or I don't know, something. And so when Labour first took over the UK government, they said there was a 20 billion pound black hole in the finances. They're up to 50 billion now. This is the new narrative, that there's a 50 billion pound black hole. And so now they're going to have to go after people's pensions and all these different kinds of things. And Catherine Porter's arguing, well, if you didn't have all these stupid policies on North Sea development and the stupid windfall tax that punishes not big companies, but the small companies that have developed or taken over the oil and gas fields. And if you weren't trying to cancel leases and stop the development of these oil and gas fields, then that revenue could plug to some extent, not all of it, but some of that 50 billion pound black hole. But she does an excellent job of really clearly outlining what the policy mistakes have been and what they could do to fix the problem. And honestly, the UK and Germany are the two countries. Please learn the lessons. Don't follow them down this net zero pathway, because it's a real lesson in how to destroy your economy and deindustrialize, as you had said earlier, Stu.
Yeah, I thought this was great, and it's the smaller ones. It's also the job loss and the loss of additional
Supply
tax
chains.
revenue. So they're over there looking at the big windfall profits tax that has been deflated because of all the extra costs that they've associated with it on top of it, which lowers their profits, which means they get lower. This is like my brain hurt. I had a Monty Python skit by myself in the corner going, my brain hurts after reading this. This is so sad.
It is sad. Yeah.
Who was prime minister when the windfall profit tax was implemented? Who was the majority in the government?
Rishi?
That was Rishi
Yeah.
Sunak and
Weren't
Boris
the
Johnson. It was
Tories
the
majority
Conservatives.
government? It was the Conservatives who did that.
Yeah, the
So I guess my
Uniparty.
question is, if you have another election and the Conservatives happen to win it, are they going to do anything about that?
Well, Kemi Badenoch she's the new leader of the Conservatives, and they've been a little more strident in saying net zero is a problem.
Yeah.
And she's talked about how she would redo net zero or maybe get rid of it and open up oil and gas development again. But the thing is, unless they get rid of the Climate Change Act, unless they get rid of their Net Zero Act, anything they do will be litigated, which is what happened when they tried to approve new fields and new developments and have offshore auctions or whatever, as Greenpeace immediately took them to court. So it's like, okay, unless you get rid of that other stuff, unless you're committing to do that, it's still there. And you're just dancing around the problem. So,
and that all remains popular in the UK, doesn't it? I mean, that concept of net zero and renewables, despite everything, still remains popular with voters, doesn't it? So it's going to be real hard, I think, for the Conservatives. I mean, they implemented those laws while they were the majority party, and
I don't know. I think
weird.
It's popular amongst certain segments of the population, I would say. And
wealthier, I assume.
Yeah. And so, I mean, if you look at who's supporting the Reform Party, it's the sort of people in the middle class to lower middle class who are like, we can't afford net zero. We can't afford the unreliable energy and whatever. And I mean, people were so frustrated with the Conservatives on all of this. And if they would have taken a stand against net zero and against the unrestricted migration that's happening, they would have won. Yeah. But they didn't.
I remember Sunak. Remember, he made that major speech in August or September of 23. That was just right on point on everything, right? And I was so optimistic that he gets it and they're going to move in that direction, and then turned out to be just words.
Yeah, just words.
Just what politicians do.
Yeah. Tammy, just because I'm in America, I just was trying to show everybody that I had a bald eagle go flying right by my cabin right here.
Oh, is that what you were doing?
That's what it was.
Trying to show. Oh. So let's see, you get a moth the size of a bat, and I get a bald eagle going by the cabin. So I came this close to really showing you.
Dang it. Needed to zoom in.
Glad they didn't come in the window, though. Holy smokes, Batman.
Yeah.
They're smart.
All right.
So we managed to kill time, and we put in a full hour today.
Well done, us.
Well done. Oh, hey, we have a special guest next week, right?
Oh, we do. Yes. Megan Lapp. Yes. Go ahead, Irina.
No, you go ahead.
You go, David.
Megan Lapp, spokesperson for the marine fisheries industry in the Northeast, who has been one of the most effective spokespersons for the opposition to offshore wind in the North Atlantic, will be our special guest next Monday. And we're going to get a full and complete update on the devastation of that industry in the Trump administration. So,
and she was fantastic on the Ingram angle.
Yes, she was. She would just and she's been on Fox Business several times here recently. She's getting big time on us here. So she's terrific. Y'all will really enjoy that episode.
Oh yeah, it's going to be really interesting.
Everybody have a great week.
Looking forward to it.
All right, everybody.
Thanks everybody.